Today we're bringing you a sample of the coaching our Your First Home Buyer Guide students get when they sign up to do the course. Every week we meet our students live on Zoom and talk through what they encounter when they're out house hunting. And in this session, Veronica explains how first home buyers can compete with more seasoned buyers.
A few weeks back, I met with one of our new students in Campfire and he prepared an excellent question. And today what we're going to do is share part of that coaching session with you.
Now, this student would like to remain anonymous, which we respect, so we've kept him off video. But he's happy for us to share this discussion and all his great questions, many of which you may also have. Enjoy. Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to become educated home buyers.
I'm Veronica and that was Megan. We're two of Australia's most experienced buyer's agents and probably old enough to be your mum, which is a good thing because between us, we've got almost 50 years experience to share with you, and together we're going to cut through the BS and make sure that you're well informed so you make better decisions.
When you get to the end of this episode, make sure you check out the show notes where you can get links to download our 2 free resources. A mini course to teach you how to price a property like a professional, and a webinar to help you become educated about buying your home with the right amount of debt. And remember to subscribe to the podcast.
But before we get to the interesting stuff in this week's episode, here's the boring bit, the disclaimer. You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field who takes the time to understand your personal situation. We have done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change rapidly, so always check with the relevant authorities and your trusted advisors to get the most up-to-date information. So you've got this property, right, which we'll look at the link in a minute because I'll share my screen with you. So your issues are south-facing gardens, freezing in winter, west-facing entertainment area, no good in summer. Ideally balcony or backyard facing northeast. Yes, that is true. However, not every property fits that bill. So we can sort of work through when you might compromise on that versus where you wouldn't. We'll look at that. Like the plan, good floor plan, natural light, quiet, away from main roads. Do you agree with my homework or suggestion? Please advise on what I missed out. Any loopholes? Okay, so there's a long-term tenant. They're living for 10 years, only vacating the property next February, paying weekly rent $490, negative cash flow, yes. And you're working around about the 670. We'll talk about that as well versus where the guide is. The agent called you around 3 o'clock saying he's already got multiple offers within the range and to respond with your best offer on the same day. Okay. How long has this property been on the market?
I don't know. I actually only checked 2 days before. I was on the break, so I just checked. I just do my regular inspection. So I was not fully prepared. I just encountered. Yeah,
and
maybe.
Probably I can find that out. Don't worry. Okay, so you had your challenges as you're a first home buyer. You're paying currently weekly rent $600. So you'd be paying if you bought this, you'd be $110. Yeah, every week. Yep. You don't want to take the mortgage for about $670. You do not want to wait till next February, negative cash flow. And that can be something that can turn off other first home buyers. And sometimes if you sort of do some sums on that, you can sometimes it works out to be an advantage, but I'm not saying it is or isn't, but it's something to consider, right? And also need you move in within 12 months to get stamp duty free and other first home buyer incentives. Some first home buyer incentives, this is where it's really important when you're using incentives, is you've got to make sure some of them do allow, they give you a leeway if there is a lease in place. So if you're buying that property with a lease in place, then what they do, they go, right, well, you can't kick the tenant out, it's unlawful. So then after the point at which you can get vacant possession, then you need to do, to occupy the property. So you would need to check, and generally the person to check with is your broker if you got a broker that's really good on first home buyers, and check with that requirement, because if there is a lease in place, then they can't make you live in it until the lease expires.
Yeah. But anyways, but the property is already under offer now.
So this is all academic, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you did make an offer. I'm just sort of adding some stuff in, some flesh here. So you did make an offer at 655 within the range, but I guess a loss to an investor is more likely to offered more and got the property. Guess what? It might not have been an investor.
Yeah.
It might have been another first-time buyer. It might have been a downsizer. Who knows? Please advise if made any mistakes or things to improve. Next time to be better prepared if the townhouse or villa really ticks most of the boxes, and be ready to make a good offer to beat the competition, or should I just wait and learn? All right. Excellent question. So I'm going to, firstly, we're going to have a look at the property, and then I'm going to go through all the steps. All right. Now, you are currently at the module, which is, you're at module 4, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, all of the stuff that you need is coming up in really modules 6 and 7, 8 and 9.
Right.
Right. So you're getting there, but let's first of all, I'm going to share my screen and we'll just talk through the property first. Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Just give me a sec. All right. All right. So we're looking at this townhouse, and let's, first thing I always look at is the floor plan. All right.
Yeah.
Because I want to go, how does it work? Right. So I look at this and I think, what we've got here upstairs, you've got 2 fairly decent sized bedrooms. Both of them have got a wardrobe, and you've got a big sort of shared bathroom, 1 bathroom upstairs. Then I look downstairs and I go, okay, so it's all open plan. You've got a little balcony, but you don't appear to have any outdoor space other than that balcony. Is that correct?
There is an outdoors. There's a lawn.
Not in the floor plan. Got it. Okay. So I looked and I think, okay, internal garage, which internal access, that's good. I see the lounge and dining, kitchen, it's all sort of all connected. I like the fact it's got a toilet downstairs.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, right? And then immediately I look at that and I think, okay, I want to see if it's got any outdoor space. So I flick through the photos. Here we are. I can see sit back from the street. One thing I think of too, when I look at these properties, I think, okay, there's your garage. Is there a space in front where you can park? It's obviously, I'm guessing it's not on title, but I always like to think, oh, does that make life more convenient? It's just one of those things that could be a value add. This is your front door. So it's roughly 30 years old, 25, 30 years old, perhaps?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Looks very neat and tidy. Tenant looks like they're really good.
Yeah. Yeah, they're well maintained property.
Yeah, really neat. Love that. God, actually make their bed. Way to go. And it's looking a bit tired, like you would expect, but it's not new. So, and then you got little lawn. Yeah. So then we look at the aspect. So here we go. This is the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
the lawn was facing northeast. I mean, not really northeast, but it was getting the morning sun. The backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, go on.
The backyard was getting the morning sun, and the front was not facing the west. Like other properties I've seen, west facing is like it can be very hot in summer.
Yeah, yeah. And look, if
it was in the corner, yeah.
If you've got awnings and things like that, and you can put or external shade and stuff like that, so facing west, if you can deal with it, right, not such a bad thing. And again, facing south, but if it's not, but if it was facing south, this building here is quite close, so therefore there's not much opportunity for sunlight to get in there if that was facing south. So there's lots of mitigating things. One thing I would definitely think, I go, right, well, look, this has been a big townhouse, so a villa development, right? Well, townhouse is what you got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 perhaps in there.
Yeah, yeah.
I look at this house here and I go, I wonder what could be built there one day.
Okay.
I don't know. And I look at this big block here and I think, I wonder what could be built there one day. Now, it might be that when these people did this development 25 years ago or whatever,
Yeah.
If these people were not, no, I'm not selling, and these people here said, no, I'm not selling, and those sites are not big enough to turn into townhouses or villas, right? But you look at everything else that's around, I think there's a really good chance at some point, the zoning might change. So they're the sorts of things I think about when I see an aerial shot, right? I think what's there now, because that's right on the boundary of this particular property, what's there now, what potentially could be there. And so when you get into module 7, when we look at the full due diligence process, we teach how to look for that. You're not just looking at what's approved and what somebody could build there, but also in terms of, what potentially would somebody be able to build there based on the current, what's currently allowed, right? And it might be you go, well, you know what, that's not wide enough, can't be done. Or it might be that, yes, you could actually put 6 townhouses there. I don't know the answer, but they're the sorts of things that go through my brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I go back to the floor plan, and what I notice on the floor plan, there's no direction for north on here.
Yeah.
Even when there is a direction for north, it can be incorrect.
Okay.
So I make sure I make my own mind up. So usually what I do is look at the map, right? And I try to work out what it is based on the map. And
that's how you guys were doing in the module. I learned that way.
Yeah. And so I know that's this here. I mean, this is not perfect either, by the way. Like, if you look at these Google Maps and you go, okay, well, this building is within the boundary for argument's sake, there's no guarantee that's actually the boundary or the edge of the building. So this is not like a survey. But I say by looking at that, it actually looks like the courtyard is actually facing north, which is, hang on, is that it? If I got that right?
Yeah, it worked. Well, it was definitely good in the mornings, and I just take a compass on my phone. It was not perfect northeast, but it's around that area, like it's around northeast, the bulk, the back courtyard.
Yeah, which is good that you check that, because that's exactly what I'll be checking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, I mean, and again, I'm looking at this location. Do you know this location really well?
Yeah, but, I've been inspecting this area for the last 2 months. Yeah, one of my friend lives around the area. He reckons it's a decent area. It's pretty safe and not many problems around in train stations nearby.
Yep.
I've only been traveling around 2 months there just to check out the area, because my budget, the villas and the budget I'm looking around around 650 mark. So these are the areas where only I can find. And it's also 11 minutes walk to train station.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how the investors, I think that's where the investors might have bought it because I don't know who bought it, but the challenge for me it's the 12 months waiting time for the tenants to vacate. I took some time, but obviously someone was better prepared to make an offer, I guess.
Oh, look, I 100% agree with you. And that is a definite negative for a lot of buyers. A lot of people want to occupy the property, because then also even though it looks like on, the way that it's photographed, it looks like it's a good tenant there. One of the things that we also, you have to look at is, do they pay their rent on time? There's a whole bunch of things that you want to make sure.
Yeah. Also, as I said, my friend, I'm already paying 600 weekly rent in Sydney. I don't want to pay rent here and also get into negative cash flow and the paying mortgage for next 10 months. So basically, there's a lot of money going out of my pocket for I'm just thinking, do people do that? This kind of for a first home buyer? If you find a good property which I like, do people get into this kind of waiting time?
It's not common, right? So what you're saying there is uncommon, right? Most times properties, when they're offered for sale, even if they've got a tenant in them, most times you'll find it's an expired lease. And and then when on sale of property, you can terminate, even though there's new tenancy laws actually coming into New South Wales in May. But at the end, once a property is sold, that is a lawful right to terminate a tenancy once it's in an expired lease, right?
Okay.
If the property is being sold subject to tenancy, then that lease will be included in the contract of sale, and it will really clearly show you exactly the date upon which the lease expires. And then there's a notice period that needs to be given to the tenant, etc. So there's a bunch of things you have to do. But it's much more common that a property would be sold with an expired lease, and that means that it's subject to vacant possession. So there's two different terms there. It's subject to tenancy when there's an existing lease, or subject to possession. And so when it's vacant possession, the agents prefer that because, of course, that allows them to be a hell of a lot more flexible in terms of working with investors and owner-occupiers. So you will find that's more common. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. And the other thing too is because often, particularly, it's unusual to find a property also that's had the same tenant for 10 years.
All right.
They typically don't stay in one place for that long. And sometimes when you do have a tenant that is in place for that long, they might be on much lower market rent.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's a has to increase the rent. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because you can't increase it if they're in a fixed term.
Yeah.
We can get into technicalities about what's changing in the legislation, but you typically can't change it when it's in a fixed term. But also what happens is a lot of times a landlord might leave the rent a bit low.
Yep.
For a tenant they know is a great tenant.
Yeah.
So they don't always keep it at market rents. So the bottom line is that normally you wouldn't have to worry about that. But in terms of making your offer, how did you work out the price to offer?
Yeah, good question. I went to I have a subscription for the CoreLogic one. There is a property, it gives estimate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes it just gives a range, but with this subscription, it gives just a guide. But
yeah.
It's at 655. So I just offered 655.
Okay.
But obviously someone was faster than me because the agent was saying you should make an offer by 4 p.m. because, but I was not ready by then.
So here's the thing. That is not the way to work out the price to pay.
Okay.
And we're going to get you there, right? So you've got, as I said, in Module 7, which has got all the due diligence stuff that you need to do before making an offer, including there's a lot to know, right? But have you done the free mini course? You've got that on how to price.
Yeah, I've done that one, but it doesn't exactly talk about exact price, right? And I'm a mistake. I have to read.
It won't, because you have to do the work.
Yeah,
you have to analyze, right?
Yeah.
AVM is wrong.
Okay.
It will be wrong much more than it is right.
Right.
Okay. Now, maybe in a townhouse, it's actually got more chance of being closer to being right than with a lot of houses because there's more uniformity of the types of property, and a lot of that similar type of property in an area. But it is a wildly inaccurate way to work out what price to pay, and so you have to do the work. And now that you're starting to look, get out that spreadsheet and start building up a little dossier, if you like, of these sorts of properties, and you will start to get a real clear picture of what price is reasonable for any property. But also there are sometimes when you might pay a little bit more because it's really good, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, you might look at this one and go, well, they're all like this. They're all very similar to this. And all of a sudden you find one's actually got 2 bathrooms. Well, that's unusual. It's got 2 bathrooms. It's got something unique. And you go, I'll push myself a bit harder for that one. Yeah. Or in this one, you might not push yourself as hard because it had that tenant in place. You go, well, I'm not going to push myself hard.
Yeah, that's what, sorry, Veronica, that's what, is there too much competition for first home buyers, right? Because someone made an offer before 4 p.m. on that day. So that means there's a competition, right? That means there is a lot of, so there are, how to beat them, how to beat the competitors, what are they doing? Because are they cashed up? Are they investors? Or, why are they? Yeah.
You're worrying about the wrong things.
Yeah.
Right? When you focus on your own research and when you focus on getting really, really clear on what a property should be worth,
Yeah.
Because when you track the recent sales and when you really keep a tab of what's going on, you'll know that there's buyers out there that might be prepared to pay, $650, for example. And then you can make a decision as to whether you want to go for this property, if so, where you're prepared to go to. So I'll give you a scenario. Say you had done your price research and we don't know, did the agent tell you what the offer was?
Not yet. It says under offer, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing maybe around 670 or something. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So here's the thing that, again, though, what you'll be able to do when you start really tracking the sales, you will know whether that is a low price range and actually it's probably going to sell for more than that, or it's a really accurate price range and it's going to sell for within the price range. Right? Yeah. And they don't all do the same thing. So for example, say that's what, and I'm not saying it is, but say that's really worth 700. Yeah. Say there are other sales out there that go, yeah, it's worth 700 every day of the week. I don't know if it is, but I'm just saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And buyers like you come along and they go, oh, it's going to be within that range. Well, I'll offer in that range. And well, the buyer that's really educated and has been around a long time and goes, you know what, I know exactly other sales that tell me that that's probably going to go to 700. I'm just going to go to 700.
Okay.
Because all the other buyers who are hoping that it's going to be cheaper, they're all making offers for less. And you go, this one sold for that one sold for that. Like I can see 3 other properties that sold for that. I'm confident it's going to sell for that.
Right.
And sometimes though, agents get it wrong and they put too much on it. And this is why you have to do your own research. Because say for instance, it's really worth 630, right? And all the buyers are going, oh, it must be worth in there. I'm going to offer them 650, 660, Well, they won't actually. If it's really worth 630, they won't. But other buyers would think, I'm not going to make an offer because I can't afford that one. And then it's still sitting on the market. And you think, well, what's wrong with that one? It's actually they're just priced wrong.
Right.
So you do have to do that research. And once you start getting that picture, you get confidence because you go, I went through that one over there and that one sold for 670. I went through that one over there, it sold for 668. I went that one over there, it sold for 680.
Yeah, but I get it. But when something, I get what you're saying, Veronica. But realistically, most of the listings come like 4 days before, right? Yeah. If it is, and that's the 4 days you're advising to do all the homework, due diligence, you can't even, how can I ask a contract before even seeing the place? Can I ask seller?
This is what I would suggest you do, right? For starters, go and do get the free mini course, download that spreadsheet and start looking at recent sales.
Okay.
So start building a picture. So before you get through the first, if you're going to be looking at a property like this, and you could do this exercise for this one, you think, okay, if I had approached it differently, what would I have known before that I didn't know, right? So you could do that and you go, well, now I actually have a very different picture about this property in terms of the price than I did before, right? Because you're much more educated, right?
Yep.
And so then when a property comes on, and you think, okay, I can't get through it till they usually come on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go and look at it on a Saturday, right?
Right.
You can do a drive past, you can walk around it. You think, okay, if this is as good on the inside as I think it might be, I can actually work out probably what it's worth beforehand. And I can do a lot of my other due diligence beforehand, right? And of course, you could even say to the agent, look, I'm really serious about this. Can you send me a copy of the contract beforehand? I want to have a look at it. So you can actually ask, right?
Yeah.
New South Wales, they're not allowed to offer a property for sale without a contract. So they have to have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can ask them and you can check all that stuff out before you walk through the door.
Right.
And you can even have, if you're really sure about it, you can even have your lawyer or conveyancer have a look at that contract before you walk in the door, if you're really sure about it. So there is a way you can accelerate all your due diligence and do that beforehand. And the thing too is that this particular one, it's sold with a 5-day cooling off period.
Okay.
You know how I know that? Because they can't put it sold because it's within that they call it under offer when it's within a cooling off period.
Okay.
So a huge mistake that a lot of buyers do is that they sign a contract and they buy it with a cooling off period without having the contract looked at by a lawyer. And the agent will tell you, you don't need to do that. You can get that done in the cooling off period.
Okay.
Right? And they're technically right. But if you want to make any changes, the owner doesn't have to agree.
Right. Because the contracts are exchanged.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So.
But like a cooling off period, you can modify contracts, right?
Only if the owner agrees.
Oh.
Whereas if you make your offer and you say, look, I want the cooling off period, but I want these changes made.
Yeah.
My offer is subject to these changes. Right. Then you exchange. Then your changes have been agreed to, and you can do your other things in the cooling off period, right? And you can pull out if it's got a bad strata report or building inspection, or if the valuation comes in too low, you can pull out for those reasons with a penalty. But the thing,
I still lose a 1.2 point out.
0.25.
Yeah.
So
the risk appetite. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to. That's why I say the best thing to do is do as much due diligence as you can first, because then that minimizes your chance of needing to pull out and lose that money.
Yeah. If I want to be specific, what exact due diligence I should do before inspecting it? If I really like the floor plan, what are we talking about? Reviewing the sales of contract with solicitor? That is one. Is it right?
Yeah.
What is the next one?
I'm going to point you to module 7, but I'll run through basic things. Like, remember I looked at that aerial photo and I looked over the fence and went, right, what's that? I'd want to be going to the council website. I want to be seeing what could be done, what potentially could I lose light? Could I lose privacy? If there's an outlook, could I lose an outlook? So that'd be something you can definitely do before seeing the property. You can ask to look at the contract of sale, and in module 7 we take you through all the prescribed documents that are in the contract of sale and what to find out from each of those. I'll give you one example, is the sewer diagram. So not that it's going to matter so much with a townhouse, but you still want to know, where's the sewer line? Is it right underneath my townhouse, or is it across my backyard, or like, that's just one thing you can find out. There's a whole bunch of other things that you can find out, which we take you through in module 7. So I won't sort of go through it now.
Yeah, module 7. Okay.
And so that sort of steps you through everything that you can discover from the contract of sale itself, because there's a lot of documents in there. The other thing you could do, you could ask, because it's a strata property, you could ask the agent, when you ask for a copy of the contract, you can ask them if they've had a strata report prepared.
Okay.
Right? Now, I would, again, you need to go through the module, and also, there's a lot that might be in the strata report, there's a lot that isn't. Townhouses is not such a big issue as apartments, right? Because it's, but if you can get access to that early, then that's great, because, again, you can read through that and start to think, okay, what's the deal here? And if not, you need to order one. You need to order one in the 5 days. So there are a number of things that you can actually do beforehand.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, the thing is, the trick part is as I said, there are some things you have to do, but you already need to make an offer, right? But you need to make an offer so the vendor, the seller agrees on the offer. Then you said conditional offer, like you can change some things. Like, is it conditional or unconditional? I forgot the word, but
it's an offer with conditions, I guess, is probably the best way of saying it.
With conditions. Yeah,
I'll give you an example. So, and in fact, I'm just looking at my list on the wall here. Module 9 is all about how to structure an offer, right?
Yeah.
So again, when you get through that module, but there's just to summarize some of it, one of the very important things when you make an offer is really getting it clear from the agent what their offer process is, because they're all different. This guy's obviously given you the deal. He said, right, you have to give me your offer by 4 p.m. But the question is, would they sell with a cooling off period? You know what I mean? So therefore, they probably would, and then it's like, well, what do you do with the offer when you get it? What's your process once you get the offer? Like, is it your best and final, or do you come back to me and tell me if there's a higher offer? Like, what do you do? Because, it's like if it's a best and final, you have to be thinking, oh my God, what is my walkaway price?
Right. So, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't start with the best offer first. You always, that means, okay. You always start with.
Here's the thing. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do have to start with the best offer, because the agent will say to you, you just give me your best offer and I'm not coming back to you.
Yeah.
Right? But then most of them don't do that. But if someone does do that and you don't give them your best offer and then somebody else buys it, and you go, God, I would have paid an extra $10,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. And then another one will say, you just give me an offer to start the process, right? And you're like, oh, great. What do you mean? Tell me how that works, So there's all differences in terms of how agents will structure their offer process, and you as the buyer needs to understand that so that you can then decide how you're going to proceed.
Right. Okay. Right.
This is a lot of information. I'm giving it to you like a fire hose, but that's where the course, when you get through the course, step it out and actually make it really clear to you at what order to do all this stuff in.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of it is as first home buyer, we tend to get emotionally attached to some buildings, right? Okay. That should have been my house, but maybe that's what detached from that.
You have to be emotional. It's a fact. You will be emotional. Everyone's emotional. Right? Just accept that. It's fine to be emotional.
Yeah, but I get that. But based on what you're advising is, and the module, I got to be scientific, like a rule.
Yes.
Okay.
That's your protection against making emotional mistakes.
Right.
You got to like property. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's crazy. People like say, oh, I'm going to take all the emotion out of the purchase. And it's like, then you buy something you hate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but do you think, I also said in one of your YouTube videos, you and Megan was saying there's always more houses coming. There's the market, but again, being prepared, and I'm just like for example, whoever bought this place, and then I'm getting still emotional. So like, how did they decide so quickly? How did they make an offer? They saw property at 11, they made an offer at 3 p.m. Like, what was the thought process? What do you think would have happened there? Like, you considering the tenant leaves until next February, are they good students? Have they done all their homework?
Okay, some people are a lot more gung-ho than others, right? Some people really don't spend a lot of time thinking about buying property. There's that type of property that type of person that really does do things, shoots from the hip, right? Yeah. So sometimes you get that sort of person around. But generally what has happened is that there's a buyer that's been looking for a while, and then they get to the point where they're ready. That's what happens.
Right. Okay.
And so what we're trying to do is help you and all of our students get ready quicker is the first thing, because we're taking you through all the steps in the right order so that you can actually build your knowledge and confidence to a point where you can be the decisive buyer. Right. And you're not there yet, and that's okay. Right? Because that's what the course will do. That's what this process will get you there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what normally happens is when somebody sees a property and buys it that quickly, it's normally because they've been looking a long time and they know it when they see it.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. But what some people do, what we see is some people, some people give up. They go, oh, this is too hard. And some people give in. And so they go, it's too hard. I can't just buy this one.
Yeah.
Right. So there's two, we don't think either of those are great outcomes. What we want you to do is to be really clear so that when you see the one and you move quickly, you know it's because it's a good one.
Yeah. It's a moving in quickly, right? So in my case, practically, I mean, emotions aside, if this, I mean, so practically it would not have made sense, right? I mean, you said, is it make sense to pay rent here and for next mortgage cash flow for 10 months? Is it practically would have been a good decision? Or I don't know, let's say something comes up like something like this again in the future, right? Mm-hmm. Do people rent in Sydney for $600 per week and also go into negative cash flow, take a loan? Do people do that? Or is it a good thing or not?
Look, it's, as I said, it's not that common. What I would, if it was me and I was looking at that and I think if this is the property that I really want.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And if the only way I can buy it is to take on this tenant, right? Worst case scenario, I have to wait until February. 10 months time before I can move in, right? That's a worst case scenario. And if that's costing me an extra, $110 a week, like I'm out of pocket effectively, I add up, how many weeks is that? That's what, 20 odd weeks. So say about $5,000.
Yeah.
Is that right? About $5,000?
Yeah.
I'd be thinking, in my mind, I'll be thinking, okay, well, I'm going to shave $5,000 off what I could pay for it if I didn't have to do that. That's sort of the way I would sort of work the sums out of my head, right? And the other thing to think about is that once that tenant is given notice, because once that property is sold, they'll be given notice to vacate at the end of the lease.
Yeah.
Right? Once they've been given notice to vacate, even you can give them 10 months in advance. Like you can't make them move out before then, but you can give them notice that far in advance, right?
Yeah.
They can, the laws are about to change, but they will be able to give 14 days notice at any time and break the lease.
Okay.
So what we often would do to say, to let that tenant know and say, look, I am going to move in. I'm definitely going to give you the notice to vacate. And I understand that's awful because you've been here for 10 years and I know that sucks. But I am definitely going to do it. And I would encourage you to start looking now because you can move out anytime with 2 weeks notice. And when you find a really good property to move into, take advantage of the fact you've got heaps of time to pick the right one.
Right.
And they might move early. And so, you factor that into your price, you discount your price by that, and it might be another buyer's prepared to pay more and you let it go.
Yeah. So the reason I asked is so you already do the max, and you subtracted my rent with their rent, right? That's how you did it. So you're not considering the fact I'm paying mortgage because that's that's what I've been.
You're paying that anyway.
All right, that's how we do it. Okay, maybe I was doing more.
Look, honestly, the sums for you. I mean, you might use a different figure. I just plucked that out thinking, well, I rent,
but it's not quite common for first home buyers, right? People waiting for them. People want to move in quickly, right?
Yeah. So you might do the sums differently. You might say, well, actually, I wouldn't be paying $600 a week rent because I'd be living there, and that's costing that. And again, you'd work out whatever that amount of money is to you over however many weeks, and you'd reduce the price you're prepared to pay to make sure that, and you've got to make sure you've got the buffers in place to be able to afford it over that time as well. And if it's not affordable, you can't do it. You just can't manage it. But these are your broker can probably help you work the numbers out because also you might have to think, okay, I need to keep more of a buffer, which means using less a deposit, might mean that I have to pay more lender's mortgage insurance. All of these things could factor in, and you have to add them all together to work out, does it make sense? And it might be that if another buyer comes in and pays more, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have to.
Well,
I just have to keep going for inspections and get more experience.
Yes, that's it. And honestly, start building up your spreadsheet, like of sales. That is the thing that every single student that does that mini course, and then the rest of what we teach you, they all say that is so valuable in helping them really work out what properties are worth.
Okay. The properties I've inspected, but I can also get the data from the sold.
Yeah, totally. But once you've inspected them, that's even better, because then you really, I've been in that. I know that a lot better than just looking online.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I will start on that one.
Yeah. So from now on, I would put every property you inspect, only just particularly if they're all very similar, I would keep a tab of, whether it's you would have bought it or not and all that sort of stuff. So it'll help you build that confidence so you will be the person moving quickly when you see the right one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for that tip. And Veronica, while you're on the call, since you've been in this field for a long time, is there a trend there is more listings coming in spring, more
Yeah.
or after winter, or which is the best time for first home buyer to make? I don't know. Yeah, because from January to March, April, I can see all the desperate people, not desperate, people who wants to make a new resolution, want to go to the gym or lose some weight. So exactly, there are first home buyers. They want to get a first home in the new year. I mean, from January to April, because that's what I think I put on. But
all right.
So
if you're in a year where prices go up and down as the year goes on, that logic works. But it doesn't often mean that the prices at the end of the year are going to be less than they were at the beginning of the year, right? So you need to look when you're ready and buy when you find the right one. Typically, what we would see now, because we're literally recording this just after two long weekends in a row, so over Easter and Anzac Day and also school holidays. So typically what happens is that there'll be a lot more stock coming on this coming weekend.
Yeah.
That's
after Easter.
Yeah, after those 2 long weekends. That's typical. A little bit like after the Christmas period when there's a lot of new stock comes on the market. We're heading into May, so we've got an election that's neither here nor there really, but in the 20th of May, we've got the RBA meets again to decide whether interest rates are going to stay the same or go down. Don't think they're going to go up this time around, but one or the other. That could spur the market along. All right. And the other thing too is as we head into winter, typically, so I think we'll have a flurry of new listings through May, is my guess. Then what happens, the winter months, they get cold. People think, oh no, I've got to wait till spring. So there usually is a drop off in listings. And then sort of from the end of September to the end of the year, usually there's a lot of listings and often good buying opportunities. But I want to caution you, because if you find a good property to go for before then, just go for it.
Okay.
You don't wait for them and then find that it's more competitive than you expected. Do you know what I mean? The market doesn't always follow the same rule, typical trend, typical cycle, but you might get left behind if you're trying to time it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fear of, I'm trying to not to fall into fear of FOMO, this, because I mean, there's also mainstream news channel says there is a possibility of rate cut in May. As you said, it could, maybe, or I don't know what happens after election if people want to get 5% deposit grant or something, if it causes more. But
that again, there could be a bit of a boost. All the first home buyers decide now's the time to buy. Look, at the end of the day, this is why I try to say to you, don't worry too much about what the other people are doing.
Yeah.
You have to focus on building up your knowledge about what's, the properties that are around, learn about the agents, learn the process of your due diligence, learn how to identify a good property and then to do your due diligence, learn how to work out what it's worth, learn how to deal with agents, make offers. That is what's going to get you into your first home. But if you're worrying about all the other things that you can't control, then you are going to get so caught up in the noise and you're not going to focus on all the right things.
Yeah. Yeah, understood. Yeah, got it. And also, do you guys know any, like, I know all the solicitors take some, like, to review the contract. If I have to be better prepared next time for due diligence, I think for reviewing the contract, they will take some price, right? So even for reviewing the contract.
Have you got a conveyance through a lawyer already?
Yeah. I got one convention, but they charge for every contract review, they charge some price.
Yeah.
So that means if I have to be better prepared for next time, so I have to get the sales of contract every time I inspect a property. Not every time, but if I like.
No. Not every time you inspect, just if you think one is going to be the right one. And the important thing, this is where understanding your budget, how far you can go for the right one, but also understanding what properties are worth in terms of market price is so important, because often early on you'll be getting contracts reviewed for properties outside your price bracket.
Yeah.
And that would be a waste of money. So, and some conveyancers will charge a fixed fee and do unlimited contract reviews. Others will charge per review. They are different. But I think that you can also do work and your own due diligence on properties before you get the contract reviewed, because you might find things in there that you go, oh, I'm not going to go for that one, and then you wouldn't send it to a lawyer.
Yeah, all right, sure.
Yep. So, but get through those modules, and you'll start to see what it is that you need to be doing. And get out and just inspect as much property and start gathering all your intel in that spreadsheet, so you become your own local expert.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the tips. Yeah.
Cool. Wow, hope you enjoyed that too. This is an example of the sort of sessions we hold on a weekly basis for our students. And if you'd like access to us to help you through your home buying journey, sign up for the course. Too many first home buyers are leaving money on the table and hurting their future selves because they don't know how to do things in the right order. That's what we do. We teach you the exact steps you need to take and support you along the way.
We help you move from a state of information overload to feeling excited and in control. You'll learn a clear step-by-step process that takes the guesswork out of buying your first home. You will know exactly what to look for, who to talk to, and how to navigate every stage with confidence, avoiding costly rookie mistakes along the way.
We've created your First Home Buyer Guide, a 10-module self-paced course plus online mentoring with us. The course only costs $990 and you get direct access to us every week. You can share the link of any property you're thinking of buying and we can help you work out whether it's an A, B or C grade property or an absolute no-go zone. We even help guide you through your negotiations. Trust me, you'll buy a lot better with our guidance and you'll overpay by an awful lot more than just the cost of the course if you don't know what you're doing.
Thanks for joining us, and if you've enjoyed this podcast, we encourage you to join our Facebook group. It's called Your First Home Buyer Guide Australia, and it's your opportunity to connect with us and ask us your questions, which we answer, meaning you can be sure you're not going to get led down the garden path. We hope to meet you soon.